Welcome to Outside Views. Today we're discussing a topic that continues to dominate British politics and economics, the collapse of support for Brexit. 5 years after officially leaving the European Union, public sentiment has shifted dramatically, with more Britons than ever believing that Brexit was a mistake. The numbers speak for themselves. Polls show that support for Brexit is at an all-time low. What once was hailed as a movement for sovereignty, economic prosperity and global freedom has turned into a source of regret, frustration and economic stagnation. We will take a deep dive into why Brexit has failed to deliver on its promises, why so many people are now questioning whether it was worth it, and what this means for the future of Britain's relationship with the EU. We will break down the data, the real-world impact, and the growing calls to revisit Britain's post-Brexit trajectory. But let's start with the economy. Brexit was sold as a way to enhance Britain's economic standing, allowing the country to create its own trade deals, eliminate EU regulations, and boost domestic industry. Instead, the opposite has happened. According to the Office for Budget Responsibility, Brexit has shaved around 4% of the UK's GDP, making it one of the most economically damaging policy decisions in modern British history. Trade has been one of the hardest hit areas, as you know from many of my videos. UK businesses now face greater barriers when exporting to the EU, with cumbersome paperwork, border delays, and increased costs all adding to the burden. Exports to the EU have declined significantly, with UK goods exports to the bloc falling by they are falling by 27% compared to pre-Brexit levels. And this is not just a theoretical loss. It's billions of pounds in lost revenue for British businesses and countless jobs opportunities gone. And foreign investment in the UK has also suffered dramatically. Before Brexit, Britain was a top destination for investors seeking access to the EU single market. Now, international businesses are looking elsewhere in France, Germany and the Netherlands. They are all attracting investment that once would have flowed into the UK. Financial services, one of Britain's most critical sectors, has also suffered from Brexit, and there we even still have transitional periods. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs have relocated to EU financial hubs, including Frankfurt, Paris and Amsterdam. And the UK's financial sector is now at a disadvantage compared to its European competitors, with regulatory barriers making it harder for UK firms to operate in the EU. But Brexit's impact goes beyond economics. Everyday life for ordinary Britons has also changed for the worse. And one of the most visible consequences of Brexit is the chaos at borders. UK citizens travelling to the EU now face long queues, new visa requirements and costly roaming charges. Gone are the days of easy movement between Britain and the continent. Students, professionals and retirees have lost their automatic right to live and work in the EU, closing off opportunities that millions once took for granted. The travel disruptions extend beyond individuals to entire industries. Sectors that depend on easy access to the EU, such as the arts, entertainment and tourism, have suffered major setbacks. British musicians and performers now face expensive work permits, new visa rules and logistical nightmares just to tour in Europe. And this has led to cancellations, lost revenue and fewer opportunities for British artists to share their talent abroad. Another industry that has been severely hit by Brexit is agriculture. Farms across the UK have struggled with labour shortages as seasonal workers from the EU, once the backbone of the agricultural sector, have been deterred by visa restrictions and bureaucracy. And this has resulted in crops rotting in fields, shortages of fresh produce and rising food prices for consumers. Food import costs have also surged due to the new customs checks and tariffs, making everyday groceries more expensive for British households. And even Brexit's supposed benefits, such as reducing immigration, have proven to be false promises. Brexit supporters claimed that leaving the EU would allow Britain to take full control of its borders and reduce immigration. Yet, net migration to the UK has actually increased since Brexit. Instead of EU workers, Britain is now more dependent on non-EU migrants, many of whom have fewer labour protections and are forced into more precarious employment situations. This has not reduced pressure on public services or improved wages, as some Brexit proponents had promised. Despite all these negative consequences, there are still some who refuse to admit that Brexit has failed, of course. Some insist, and I can see it in a lot of comments here, that Brexit is a long-term project and that its benefits will eventually materialize here. And others refuse to acknowledge their mistake out of sheer political stubbornness. But the tide is turning. Poll after poll shows that the majority of Britons now believe Brexit was a mistake. Even some of Brexit's former supporters are beginning to acknowledge the reality. Jeremy Clarkson, a well-known and outspoken media personality, has publicly stated that Brexit is the biggest mistake of his lifetime. His frustrations with post-Brexit bureaucracy, border delays and economic stagnation echo the experiences of millions of Britons. Alan Sugar, another prominent businessman, has also admitted that Brexit was a failure and has called for Britain to repair its relationship with the EU. But what would reversing Brexit even look like? Is it even possible? Well, the reality is that Britain cannot simply rejoin the EU as if nothing happened. That's why I'm doing this series at every second day. If the UK wanted to return, it would need to apply as a new candidate and go through the full accession process, meeting all EU membership criteria without the special privileges it once had, no rebate or anything. And this means accepting the euro, complying with all EU regulations, and giving up many of the opt-outs the UK previously enjoyed. And for many, this would be a bitter pill to swallow, but it's the only realistic pathway back into the EU. But what happens next? The Labour government under Keir Starmer has taken cautious steps toward improving relations with the EU, but full membership is definitely not on the table. However, economic reality may force their hand. As Britain struggles with low growth, trade barriers and declining influence, the pressure to seek deeper integration with Europe will only grow, especially with Trump in the Oval Office. And if public opinion continues to shift, political leaders will have no choice but to respond. Brexit has failed, and Britain is finally waking up to that fact. The costs are undeniable, and the supposed benefits have definitely not materialized. And as calls for a closer relationship with the EU grow louder, the question is no longer whether Brexit was the wrong decision, it's what Britain will do next to fix it. So, thank you for watching Outside Views, and if you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more deep dives into the UK politics post-Brexit. And let us know in the comments what you think about Brexit's impact and what you believe Britain's next steps should be. See you in the next video, and one of those is right here in the end screen.